Joining us for insight into the poll is Ed Espinoza from Progress, Texas. So what are the big takeaways you're seeing from this poll?
So the big takeaways, Biden and Sanders are in a dead heat at 24 points each. Bloomberg not far behind at 17 points. And then Warren threatening at 14%. Now, the thing that we found that was really interesting about this poll is that we also ran it without Bloomberg's name on there, since this is the first time that he'll be on the ballot. So we wanted to see how he was impacting the race. And more than anyone else, Bloomberg is siphoning votes away from Biden. If he were not in the race, Biden would have 31%. Elizabeth Warren would have 17%. Most of the other candidates would be in the same place they are today.
So basically, you're asking, voters if Michael Bloomberg was not in the race, who they would vote for.
Well, not an ask on my part, but more of an observation, I would say. Some other observations that I think were interesting. Healthcare was the most important issue by far and away for all of these candidates. And surprisingly, Elizabeth Warren, even though she was in fourth in this poll, had the highest favorability ratings at 66%. Also, she was everybody's second choice. So she might be at 14%, but she's got the ability to surprise on Election Day.
Now, you asked voters to name the most important issues to them. What really topped the list?
Healthcare was number one, 41 and 42%, followed by climate change, which is at roughly 16%. Now, we just gave them a list of issues and said, name the one that's most important to you right now. So if we asked positive, negative on each issue a different way, the answer might look a little different. But for these purposes, healthcare was definitely number one, followed by climate change, then voting rights.
Yeah, we see, 8% for gun safety. I think that gets a lot of talk in the political landscape, but really it's not one of the issues that resonates with voters as being right there as the most important.
I wouldn't characterize it as that. I think that maybe gun safety isn't as important as healthcare is as far as their number one issue goes. But if you were to ask them, do they think gun safety is important, yes or no, that split may actually shoot up to something like 80%, 20%, maybe even higher. So I think this was a short poll. We ran it on Monday and Tuesday. We needed results very quickly. So we really were limited as to what questions, how we could ask the questions in those regards.
Were there any surprises when it comes to the issues portion of it?
Not the issues portion, no. I think the candidate portion, there was another surprise we saw was that Bloomberg's negatives were very high. Very unusual for somebody who has not experienced any negative advertising in this state. He was at a 41% favorable and a 39% disapproval. That shot up to 62% disapproval when you looked at voters under the age of 45. Just a really big hit that he took in that regard.
Now, some people believe Bernie Sanders could hurt Democrats' chances to gain congressional and state House seats. Does that idea come through in your poll?
Well, I think you see a lot of voters that are really spread around in other places that aren't going behind Sanders. But the thing that I remember is I always go back to 2016 where they thought Trump was going to be a drag on the ticket and that Trump could never get elected, and Democrats were salivating at the idea of running against him. And 4 years later, here we are.
And Texas is not a winner-take-all state for Democrats.
Most Democratic states are not. They're proportional allocation for the delegates. So what is important is that 15% threshold. If somebody is at 9%, they're not going to be viable. They will not get delegates. And the way that delegates are allocated is not on a statewide level, but on a district level, specifically a state Senate district level. So how somebody is performing in Austin specifically, or in Dallas or in Houston, has more of a bearing than how they are performing statewide.
All right. Ed Espinoza, thank you very much for being with us.
Good to be here.